Check out my roster, friends, and did you know that I actually regret so many of the decisions I have made in this roster that I almost wanted to reroll my entire account and start fresh? It's true. And with all these mistakes that I've made, I want to make sure I get that message out to you now in case either A, you're brand new coming in for season 1, or B, maybe you're not new, but you're going to pick up some new characters, and I want you to avoid what I think are some pretty bad mistakes that I've made. Let's cover them all. I'll put timestamps in there in case some of these don't apply to you. But let's start off actually outside of the characters. I'm going to come back to those. And let's talk about Arc City. So with Arc City, the research facility, this isn't so much of a mistake that I regret because I was really kind of testing this. But be very, very careful about putting in points in this level kind of 45 range on the top path. This does nothing for No Shop. This gives you more of those hourglasses when you're in combat, and a lot of people don't even use those to like roll back your turns. Can they be helpful? Yes. I just don't think they're useful that much. And so I would have maybe held these points here, and I would have rather put those points over in something like this where I can get more affinity, or even potentially opening up another one of these paradise excursions to allow more of my partners, or not partners, my characters to show up in these little spots here to drive my affinity. So that's the first thing that I would say is just be careful in that research facility. I still think the middle path is the right path for a lot of it, but nodes like this are really kind of useless, and you don't necessarily have to fill out a full node because you can put one in to go to the next space and then use spaces otherwise. This is just a cumulative total up top, so you don't have to fill out every single thing to max. Like you can see, mine is 1 of 5 right there. So that's the first little mistake, thankfully not a super egregious one. All right, next on my mistakes list is the chaos. So the first thing I did is I spent too much time in normal chaos manifestations. Now, up until the point that you open 0, of course you're gonna be in here, and that's nothing wrong with that. Get your decks, build some things out, try it out, whatever. But once you open 0, you don't need to go back to chaos, because as you create these planets in your codex, like if I were to go to merge and make one, they are the planets that you see here in the chaos, and as you complete it in 0, you are still driving forward your exploration levels. You're getting your rewards. And so I have certainly not pushed myself to level 20 here in the regular chaos mode since I've opened this up in 0. But there was a time when I kept going back to the regular chaos, and it frankly was just a waste of time. I should have done it 0. And then speaking of 0, I was trying too hard to build decks at the low difficulty levels. I didn't realize the importance of getting up to rank 10, and so you can see I'm rank 8 right now. And what you really want to do, and I wasn't doing this at first, so this is the mistake, is I was picking modifiers here that were of higher value, and that's fine, you can get decent save data, but two things: one, you can lose easier, and two, if you lose, you are really wasting credits, because in the codex, when you go to merge, it takes credits to open this up. And look, if I did one right now, it's 72,000. I don't have a lot of credits. So you really want to be pushing yourself to where you're able to complete these. And as you go up, you unlock these new difficulties. And what's nice about that is the rewards that you get better gear, better, leveling materials, etc. And so the sooner you can get this to a higher level, the sooner you can get those better rewards. And you get these 4, loot certification cards you can use per week. So I really wish that I had just focused straight on getting this to level 10 from the get-go. Lessons learned, that's what I'm pushing for as we speak. Now this is actually something I feel like I did not mess up for the next one, and I want to show it to you. So if you look at my character roster, we go to Agent Collection, I don't have a ton of the 5 stars. I've got quite a few duplicates on Hugo, the game likes to give it to me. I've gotten a duplicate on Veronica, and I pulled Felipe finally at pull 301. You heard that right. So what I was doing is I was going to the rescue and I was going to the standard banner, and I was dumping resources because I wanted to get to the point that I could do the rescue merit here where you get to select somebody, and I was gonna select Felipe. That's why I drove this up here. And it just so happened I hit the 300 and I was 1 away from my next guaranteed, and I did it, and it was Felipe. So just pure luck after so much bad luck. But here's where I think that I am not gonna make a mistake. I could come in here and pick a Rin or Leah, whoever, and drop them into my roster right now. But I don't know that if I did that, A, I could level them, and B, that they would instantly give me something in my team that I need to overcome a specific challenge, okay? So I'm actually intentionally holding on to this guaranteed rescue, not to necessarily test if this pool gets bigger. I don't suspect that it will. It's because I need to get to the next natural point that I can't overcome, and then really sit back at this roster and say, you know what? Is it this person here that's going to take that over? You know, is it Luke or whoever? And who do I really think is going to get me to get over that hurdle? And so this is something I'm not going to make the mistake on. I'm going to hold this ticket as long as I need to until I can answer that question. And that's a perfect segue, honestly, into where I've made the most mistakes. And this is going to be in combatants. So let's talk about them. So if you look at my list, you're going to notice a couple things that are probably going to make you facepalm. One, I've got 4 characters up here at level 55. I've got a few level 50s, and then a couple level 40s, and a few I haven't leveled, right? And this has been expensive to level. They might be adjusting this a bit as we get into season 1, but at least for the status quo as it remains, this has cost almost all of my credits. Matter of fact, I had to farm out some credits the other day. And I don't think that I'm necessarily sitting on like the best, gear to go with it. And let me show you how I really think I messed up. So first of all, in my chase to get a shielder, it didn't have to be Felipe, I eventually, went for her, I was using Amir. I don't think that Amir ever really did anything for me. I honestly can tell you that going through the fights, I never felt like I, won the fight because Amir was there. I'm not gonna say she's good or she's bad, there's probably decks that make her amazing. But for what my teams were and how I was running them, she was not great. And so when I think about pushing her already to 40, and then given her, she just has some basic potentials, whatever, and she had some other, fragments, it just wasn't worth the investment, especially in the credits that I gave her. Same thing with Owen. I put Owen as a shielder before I pulled Amir, and it was just because I could try to build a deck around some of his shields, and I was trying to solve a problem that I could have just solved with patience, and so I wasted materials on him. I think everyone else I've used, Maribel held me for a while until I got Felipe. And so, I kind of wish I maybe held her at 40, 45, but she was used in quite a few stages. So at least I got some return out of her, but I would have preferred it if Amir was maybe level 20, Owen was level 20, and I would have gotten the rest of this crew to level 20. Why is that? Because I can't really experiment with their kits right now. I would love to get Nia up. I think she could be solid. I would love to test out Selena. I would love to get into the crazy barrel DPS, but I couldn't level these people if I had the materials. So what I've wasted in these other characters, I should have been spreading around and going into lower chaos and testing them out and figuring out what their synergistic decks were, and then investing into my higher levels, saying like, oh yeah, like let's just pretend we didn't know Mika was great. I could have been like, hey, Mika does, a lot of AP, a lot of healing, and then I would have wanted to level her, right? And I'm probably robbing myself of that opportunity on Ania because I've got to now play catch up on resources. So let's talk about the other ways I've used those resources and where they may have been, harmful. So first, you're seeing these level 55s. That is because of the, beginner book, whatever you want to call it. And you can see I'm on the final step at 10. And I was trying to push this through, and what I sat back and realized this morning is what I got in return for pushing this probably doesn't outweigh what I gave up in leveling characters. So with all those characters that you saw that are higher level, I probably could have spread that wealth around better, and I would have been missing, some standard pulls, a couple premium pulls that I haven't even used, a couple gems, which I use a little bit of that for stamina refresh, but whatever. But honestly, my biggest miss would be maybe a little bit of account level. And yeah, I'm over 50, but I don't know if that's a huge deal. So I could have taken this quite a bit slower. And now that I've kind of realized that, I've started slowing down on leveling, because you can see I was working towards the level 55 or 6 random combatants. That's why the level 55. And then I was going to go right into the 55 partners. And I'm like, wait a minute. Do I really want to push a lot of my partners that are 3 stars or 4 stars at best up to level 55 so that I can get a little bit of XP? Now, I would love these credits, but I'm going to use those, just leveling them to 55 and a couple of pulls. I don't think it's worth it. I think at this point, these can come naturally, but I was rushing them through. So I think the early stage stuff, it's fine because these are all pretty generically easy and they're like, lower levels, level 20, whatever, like that stuff is fine. But when you start getting into, probably somewhere around like the level 7 and up, maybe 8 and up, that's when you really got to slow down and say, hey, is the trade-off of getting, for example, you know, this captain credit plus these materials worth taking 6 people to 50 if they're not the 6 people that you really want to get to 50 right now. So I wish I would have slowed down on that. That's why they're 55, and it's why I'm now slowing down. I was smart enough at least to use 4 of the people that I'm really gonna have in my teams for the 55. The other thing I did too is early on with potentials, I didn't really, I guess, focus on what they did and how they related to cards. And so you're gonna see here that for me to finish out some of those quests in the book, I was bumping stuff into basic cards. Well, guess what I never use on Hugo? Basic cards. Pretty much most of my teams. And if you were to go through my roster, I've done that quite a few times on some of the older characters. And this, again, it's a waste of resources. It's a waste of credits. Credits felt like they were more free early on. They're not. They are a big crunch right now. And so what I'm doing differently is now really targeting into characters. You know, if I look at Haru, I have been investing in her, but I made a mistake up here of tossing this into Anchor and Power Anchor, which is usually the first things I'm dropping. So you could argue that maybe this is helpful at the start of a Chaos run, but outside of that, it's a waste of materials. This one on the top right is fine, it's Anchor Shot, but now I'm trying to be more specific about what I'm investing into, and especially now that we have these limited resources to level these nodes. So you can see I kind of stopped here because I'm gonna have to start tapping into what we mostly get from like boss challenges. And I don't want to willy-nilly throw a bunch of stuff in there and then realize, hey, that investment wasn't really returned to me. It's not really doing what I wanted to. Granted, I think crit and crit chance will be fine, and that's why I don't mind so much on her. But I could have really used those materials that I tossed into this one like an idiot. So I really want to caution you, when you go to level a character and their potential, really think about the builds that you could do with them. Maybe take them through a few chaos levels before you put anything in here outside of this first node, because you know you want that random epiphany. But before you level anything else, sit back and say, okay, if I built 2 or 3 save decks, what in here is helping that deck? What in here is helping that build? And if you find yourself not using basic cards or not using neutral cards or things like that, so like this node here, don't put anything in there outside of the default point to keep you going. So I've wasted a ton of credits, a ton of, you know, these stones or whatever into points that are absolutely useless. They really are in a lot of situations. And then the last place is really going to be in the memory fragments. And I started slowly trying to fix this. So I think I put too much stamina into trying too many different things early on. And I should have just gotten a very, very generically basic set that had just the modifiers that I want for whatever characters, like Hugo or whatever. Then come back as I've opened up these late game stages and the 0 mode to decide, hey, what am I going to really focus down and what are those stats that I really want, and really think about my DPS units, because they are the ones that I think you really get the most return on from super investing into. So like you can see here on this stage, you know, bumping up to 5, for example, would get me more of the gold quality or whatever card that is. And yeah, I've got to beat the other difficulties. I haven't been farming this obviously for this stage, but as you go up, you get a better chance of getting better rewards. And so I should have really kind of just stayed basic until I needed it. And then really thought about, hey, how do I do this build? How do I make sure that I've got the right set bonuses, but then also really start focusing in on only upgrading things if I've got the right main stat up here. So your first 3 your first 3 pieces, these are always going to have the same. So you're always going to get health on these. For example, you'll always get attack down here. But your back 3, this is where you can get different stats. And so like the easiest way to see it is if I go to craft, you can see main option settings. So this first one for your DPS is, in most situations, I'd assume crit chance is going to be your best bet. And then if you look at, for example, the second piece, you got attack percentages, you've got percentages for your different types of damage. And then the final one, this is where you can get, again, another attack percent, defense or health. I guess if you're a shielder, maybe you want the defense, whatever. But I really should have been focusing in on getting this kind of right side locked out, and in doing so, upgrading the right pieces to get the best return. And so I'm now leaving a lot of power on the table because I'm having to play catch up to fix these builds. Now, if you're wondering overall, what is this causing me to lose out on? You know, if I made mistakes, then obviously I have to be feeling it somewhere. And where I feel it the most is honestly in Basin. So if I go to Basin of Hyperspace, oh, it just ended, figures. So I haven't finished this one, and this is only because I was working on the other side, and so I haven't come back to finish out these last few stars. Actually, probably could. But on the other side of the basin, I got 26 of 30 when it was all said and done. And what I was missing is, I can't even look at it at all. I was missing 2 stars on node 9 and 10. And so for each of those, and granted they're, theoretically the hardest stages in all of Twilight, but I could tell that I was lacking power that could have been filled. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, is scoring through there and saying, if I had just squeezed out 1 more turn, 2 more turns, I could have, finished this out. I was always close. It was never that I was like 50 turns away. And so if I was smarter about how I did my memory fragments, really focused in on the chaos to get them in 0 mode, I think all those things would have helped me tremendously. So if I put this in a package around a bow for you as we come into season 1, first of all, if you don't know if a character is good, get them to level 20. Just get them level 20, tops. Bring them into a lower level, chaos mode, one of the planets or whatever, and just take them through a run, try to build a deck for them, get a feel for how that character works, and then ask yourself, with your main DPS, will they help them perform their job better? Like Mika is amazing on my Tressa and Hugo team, or she's amazing, pretty much she slots in anywhere, let's just be honest. And then Veronica is actually really good on my Haru team. And that's because she can force certain card draw and stuff for me. And then she has like her little follow-ups and whatnot at the end of the turn. And so if you take someone like that's like a level 20, test them out, try to do something good with them, try to put them with your DPS and see if they work, then you'll know better if you should bring them up. And when you bring them up, I think your DPS is fine to get to 50, possibly even 60 if you have plenty of materials, if it's like your main one or your favorite one. Otherwise, 55 actually feels noticeably stronger than 50. I would stop a lot of your characters at 40 because they're supports. And I don't think that like Cassius has been held back by this at all on my team. Now, eventually I'd like to get him up, but I would rather get my stamina going into getting my DPSs able to clear content faster than getting Cassius a little bit stronger when what I'm looking for is card draw, right? So I would say first, get your characters to like 20, test them out, see if you like them, unless you just know you're not going to play them, that's fine. Then really focus in on a couple of key DPSs that will get you through whatever the challenges are at that current state of the game. So if the game is really calling for blue units, maybe you look for a blue DPS. If the game is really calling for, I don't know, AoE, is there a way for you to solve AoE battles? Think about those things the game is pushing you to do, and do one of your DPSs have a build that can do that thing for you. Then push your supports that are both useful in that team and that are interchangeable. Mika's good everywhere. Absolutely good everywhere. I don't mind bringing her. Cass has a lot of different teams he could be good in, but I don't ever need him with my Tressa and Hugo. Kalipe, great for my second team when I don't have a Mika. So these are things that you can think about that will help you in multiple different modes that you can sub people in and out for. Then I would say, really think about your memory fragments, really lock down the sets that you're going to want to use, and make sure that you get those set bonuses, and then focus down your main stats up here. Ideally, you'll get 1 or 2, I would say, of your substats to also be decent. Like, unfortunately, I just don't have something better for him in here, but it's going to be really hard and really random to get like, a perfect 4 set down here. And if you want to, kind of test your bottom slot or whatever you need to unlock, just do the 1 upgrade to get there. Don't go all the way to, rank 5 and then see that it's, trash or whatever. Just go up to, 1 level if you've got other good substats up here. That's going to tell you if you're going to want to invest. So like, for example, if I look at this piece, crit damage, cool. But when I went up a level, I got defense. Not as cool. If you look at this one, I got a crit chance, had a crit damage, and I was like, okay, hopefully I get a 3rd one that's good. It wasn't, but I don't have the stamina to fix this right now, and that's why I've leveled this one up to 5, because I can at least get her crit going. But I would love to have one other stat here. So, take them up a little bit, don't take them up all the way. So focus your memory fragments correctly, and then for your potential data, open your first node, and I'd almost say don't touch the other nodes until you've played a few rounds of Chaos and you realize what you're actually using. Are they uniques? Do they need crits? What is it in that tree that you need? Don't waste points like I did with Haru on nodes like this. Like, I will never use Throw Dagger outside the first couple turns in a Chaos round, and then I'm going to get rid of those cards anyways. So I need to save these very limited resources on my future decisions. I think if you do those things, your characters will be fine. And then, like I said before, focus your 0 down, get your chaos, growth from this mode by trying to get yourself to max rank, difficulty 10 over time. And that's going to fill out your chaos in the meantime. So I hope that these tips help you as you go to build more characters, do more modes, especially if you're brand new to the game coming in with season 1. And my friends, if you wouldn't mind a like and a sub on the video, it would help tremendously. And until our next video, take care of yourselves.